Hello, welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me again for what is now Vlogmas 5. It's the 5th of December already. And well, welcome if you're new, and thank you for coming back if I've seen you before. If you'd have watched 2 days ago on, it's Tuesday today, if you'd have seen 2 days ago on Sunday, you would have seen us venturing out where I was going to pick up a Facebook Marketplace item that I bought, which was an hoodie. And this is the hoodie. You know, it's got a great big hood on the back, but it's one of these huge, great big oversized, I mean, it's absolutely massive. It's I think it's 6XL or something, which is huge. Great big blanket jumpery things with sleeves and a hood. And even the sleeves on it are massive. And I'd said at the time that I wanted to buy one, but there was no way I was going to spend out up to £100 on one until I knew that it was actually worth the money. I think they are on special offer at the moment at some places. You can get them for £50. This is the branded hoodie. That's OODIE. I think it's an Australian brand. But you can get them, as I say, half price. But even at half price, it was too much for me to pay out unless I knew I was going to absolutely love it. But I found this one second-hand on Marketplace for £15, and I thought that's just about my sweet spot for something like this. So I thought, well, I'll buy it second-hand and then I'll know if I like it or not. And then if I do like it, I can get another one or give this one maybe to Neil and I'll get a different colour one or something. Either way, it meant that we could try it and see if we thought it was worth the money. It has got this lovely fleece, woolly kind of lining, and then this very, very, very soft velour top to it. It's got a huge, great big kangaroo pocket on the front, and I love the kangaroo pockets on clothes. I find them so useful. But I suppose because it is all designed around being a 6XL size, it starts so low down that if I put anything in the pocket, I can't reach it to get it out again. It is just, so even to, unless I'm sitting down, to put my hands in the pocket, it's too low. But sitting down, it's very good, and it's so big that you can kind of tuck it over your knees and keep your knees warm. They do make, there's a different brand that makes them kind of full length, but the problem with that is because I'm short anyway, if I got the full length one, it would be too long. And because I often have to go out to the shed to, I keep all my boxes in the shed. So if I need to wrap a parcel and I've got to go out and get a box and it's raining or you know, maybe in the future it'll be snowing, don't want it traipsing along the ground. So this one's just below the knees and just about perfect. But the funny thing was, when I went to get it, found the lady's house, rang the doorbell, went in. Very, very nice lady, Brenda. So if you ever find this on YouTube, Brenda, hello, thank you. And she was showing it to me, and I was paying her, and she said, "Have you come very far?" And I said, "Well, we've come from Crawley," which actually was further than I thought it would be. I hadn't looked up the mileage on the map before we went. I just thought, oh well, it's not that far, but it actually was further than I should have really gone. But even with the cost of fuel on top of it, it still makes it less than half the half price that it's being offered on sale at the moment. But anyway, Brenda said to me, "Have you come far?" I said, "From Crawley." And she said, "Oh, I grew up in Crawley." It's a small world, isn't it? And she said, "What part of Crawley?" So I said, "Well, I grew up in Tilgate. I was there until I was 16. Then I left home and went and had a flat in Ifield. I was there for a few years, and now I've been in Bewbush for 47 or 48 years. And she said, "What school did you go to?" So I said, "Thomas Bennett." And she said, "Oh, so did I." So we were both at the same school. And when you talk about class of and then a year, that works in America where you have a graduating year. But when I was at school, it wasn't really, there was no graduation. You just took your exams and left, and some people would take exams, some wouldn't, some went on to college to take them. It was a really undefined thing. So when I think of what year were you at school, it's what year did you start, what what year did you leave? So rather than try and get into all of that, I just said, I'm 65. And she said, so am I. So it turns out we were in exactly the same year. We were kind of going through all the people that we remembered from school and seeing if we could pick out any names in common. But our school at the time that we were there was the largest school in Europe. It was the second biggest school in the world in those days. So we had, the school at the time had 2,200 pupils. So to know everybody in your year would have been an impossibility, really. You wouldn't actually come into contact with them all. It was divided into houses. We had 4 houses, and then you would be in your house for registration in your tutor group, but then you'd go off to other classes where you'd mix with the other houses for your English, maths, chemistry, you know, all the other things that you would be learning. But then because it was, you'd be streamed according to your, what would be the modern term of describing it? I think it would be insulting to say intelligence, but it was kind of a bit like that. You know, you would have the upper stream, then the middle stream, and then the lower stream. So you may not come into contact, you know, if you're in one house and in one of those streams, you wouldn't necessarily meet the people in other houses from the other streams. So we wouldn't necessarily have come into contact with each other. But I just thought it was lovely that it was somebody from all those years ago. And she had said that she'd had 3 friends who'd just stayed overnight, which were old school friends. And she thought, if you'd have come earlier, we could have all got together and maybe you would have known them or they would have known you. So that's Yudi. It's lovely and cosy. It means that I usually spend my evenings upstairs in my bedroom and watch television upstairs, and then that leaves Neil, he can either watch what he wants to watch downstairs, or he can play a computer game or something, and we're not trying to do different things in the same space. And he's got the dogs downstairs, so he's got literally cuddle warmth. So I have a little electric fire in my bedroom that it runs on like the cost of a light bulb, so it's not expensive to run. But with this, I don't actually need it on at all, you know, because I don't actually get under the covers until I go to bed, as it were, which is around about 2 o'clock in the morning. And when I get under the covers, that's the time when I open my window as wide as it'll go, because I can't sleep in a warm room. So no matter what the weather, no matter what it's doing outside, my window is as wide as it will go. But those few hours in between going upstairs and getting into bed, I need to be warm and cosy sitting on top of the bed, and so I have my hoodie. So that's the hoodie bit of the story out of the way. But back to I rewatched yesterday's memories of Christmases gone past, and I thought there were a few bits and pieces that because I was just speaking totally off the top of my head in the car, there were a couple of bits and pieces that I thought I would just add to that before we say that's Christmas past in the past. And the first thing, as it's not Vlogtober, it's Vlogmas, isn't it? Oh, I'm getting sorry, my brain's a little bit fried today. I don't know why. I must have been doing too much thinking yesterday. Used all my thought quota up for the week. But we're on number 5 today, and that just made me think about advent calendars and how they have evolved over the years into these big spectacular things. I mean, there was no such thing as an advent calendar with chocolates in it when I was little, or for that matter presents. It was just 2 sheets of cardboard sandwiched together, and you would have to spend ages looking for a tiny little number so that you found the window, and then you'd carefully open the window and you would be rewarded with a picture. And some days it would be a lovely picture and that would set you up for the day. You know, it would be a robin or a reindeer or something really nice. But somehow, I don't know why, but the day when you opened it up and there's just a bauble, It's just like, oh no, it's a bauble. I mean, how can you be disappointed by a picture in an advent calendar? But sometimes somehow I manage to be. But no, if you wanted to go for the Christmas chocolates, then we had a tradition, as did most families in England in those days, of we would buy a huge tub of quality street chocolates, which was just a big, it was a tin in those days, they're plastic nowadays, and it was big, whereas nowadays with shrinkflation there's hardly anything in it, but you would get this big tin of sweets that would literally last for weeks because you would only ever have one. It wouldn't be a case of sitting there watching the TV and just having another one and another one and another one. It would be just one. You know, the tin would go around, you would all have one, and then that's it. The lid would go on and it's forgotten about for another day. But we also had, hanging on the Christmas tree, you would get chocolate ornaments that were hung on the tree. And little chocolate, there were coins covered in silver and gold foil, and they would come in a little net bag that would hang on the tree. And you know, they weren't something that you were just allowed to go and eat. In fact, many years later, when I had children of my own, they would stay on the tree right up until the day we took the tree down, and that was the last bit of Christmas that we would enjoy, eating the chocolates that had been on the tree all the way through Christmas. But back to when I was a child, I've got a few notes here for things in, just to make sure that I remember the things that I wanted to tell you about. Because talking about chocolates, the other thing was, as I said yesterday, we didn't have a stocking, my sister and I. We had a pillowcase, because any odd-shaped presents, it's the smaller, cheaper things that went into the pillowcase. It was easier to get it into the pillowcase. But everything was wrapped beautifully, so there were lots and lots of presents in there to unwrap. But there would always be a Cadbury's stockings. There would be a piece of cardboard the shape of a sock. And then there would be various different Mars, what do you call them? The big chocolates, like, well, it'd be Cadbury's, so I'm trying to think what Cadbury's... It would be a selection pack, a variety pack of the bigger sweets, and there would always be one of those in the pillowcase. But again, it wasn't something that we were allowed to just dive into and start eating. That had to last. And we used to buy for elderly aunts and nans and things Newberry fruits, and I've not seen them for years. They were like a jelly type sweet with sugar on the top, and they were actually quite delicious, but it was very traditional to give those to elderly ladies. So I'd rather like some of those myself this year, but I haven't seen them for years and years and years. And alongside the sweets and the chocolates, Christmas for me was exciting because we were allowed fizzy drinks, because that wasn't something that we had as a general ordinary thing. You know, in our house, a carbonated fizzy drink was a special occasion treat drink. So whether it was Coca-Cola, or if it was more likely to be lemonade, our White's lemonade, or cream soda, or ginger beer, it would be one of those. And it was only really Christmas that we would have a selection of fizzy drinks, and you know, they would be available to us. But even then, it wasn't something that you could have a glass and then have another glass, and then, you know, it was, you have one today and then you wait till tomorrow for the next one. It was a much more disciplined way of eating and drinking, and a much healthier way, to be absolutely honest. You know, I should really get back more like that nowadays. I don't drink fizzy drinks these days. I don't buy fizzy drinks or squash type drinks that you have to dilute with water, because to me it's still in my head that they're something that you have as a special thing, not an everyday thing. So you have the pillowcase and you have your chocolates in the well, this was just my sister and I don't know what other families did, you know, this was just our family tradition. We would have our chocolates in there. There would always be an annual as well. You would have your favourite comic that you had every week, but at Christmas time there would be a big thick annual that was it had stories, and then it had games and puzzles and things in there. It was a book that actually took you time to work through, and I used to really enjoy my annual every year. I expect they'd be worth quite a lot of money now. I don't even know if they do them anymore. I haven't seen them for, well, not since I was little. And another thing that used to happen when I was little, that I don't know if it still happens at all anymore. It seems to have died out where I am. But when I was little, you would be on the run up to Christmas, the week or two before Christmas, you would be in the evening doing whatever you're doing. If the TV was on or something, you would just become aware of, in the background, singing. You would hear carols being sung, and then there would be a knock at the door or ring on the doorbell, and you'd go and there would be half a dozen, normally sort of 12 to 15-year-olds, and they would be singing Christmas carols. And you would all, as a family, you'd all stand there with the door open and you'd listen to them while they serenade you with this carol, and then you'd give them some money. And it wasn't normally in those days that they were raising money for charity. I think carol singing and penny for the guy for our November firework night, it was quite acceptable for kids to do that, to raise a little bit of money for themselves. And I think the carol singing was really so that they could afford to buy presents for their mums and their dads and things like that. But it was something that it was lovely to have them come round caroling, and I should imagine that they made quite a lot of money doing it, you know, going round from house to house, up and down every street. But when I moved to Ifield, I was in a flat, and we never had any come upstairs in the flat. So I didn't get any carol singers at all in Ifield. And then when I moved to this house, we did get the odd few to start with, but they tended to be slightly younger, less of them. Usually it'd be boys from rough houses, and they would just come along, bang on the door, you go and open the door, they'd sing one line of a carol because that's clearly all they knew, and then kind of shove their hand out, almost demanding money with menaces. It wasn't a joyous occasion really, but even that's died out. You know, I haven't seen a carol singer go door to door for many years, and I think that's a shame. But I think over the course of my lifetime, Christmas, that started off when I was younger as not just for my family but for everybody, it was a Christian holiday when I was little, but it just became more and more commercialised until it just got to the stage where now now councils and shops, and it's frowned on to even talk about it in terms of Christmas. It's, you know, it's the holidays, or it's this or it's that. You know, they're being so careful not to attribute any faith to it, which I think is such a terrible shame. You know, I really do think that as a country, even though I'm pagan and it's not my belief system, I really do think that as a country we are giving away part of our heritage in losing our Christian roots. And I would like to see Christianity back in Christmas and Easter celebrations. You know, like Easter eggs aren't even called Easter eggs anymore. They're now chocolate holiday eggs or something. I really would vote for having a Christian assembly back in children's schools. So they actually start off with a foundation in the religion, and then it's up to them whether they accept it or reject it as they grow older. But I don't think it does them any harm as children to. Well, it certainly didn't do me any harm. You know, like I say, I wasn't a Christian I wasn't from a practicing Christian family. I grew up pagan. I followed my own path in life, and I would still advocate for it going into schools, but for it being Christian assemblies in schools. And the other thing that seems to have died out was when I was little, you would have the firm's Christmas party. Now, as an adult, I think they still do adult Christmas parties, but when I was little, there would be the children's Christmas party. So whoever was working at the firm would pay in a certain amount every week, and then there would be a big event put on just for the children of all the workers. For me, it's not a very happy memory. It was something where we were taken along and kind of pushed into having a good time, and that's not how I work, you know. I think because we had to go in, you know, Mum never came. It was Mum's firm, not Dad. Dad commuted to London, so his firm would have been far too far away. So it was Mum's firm, but she didn't stay with us. She dropped us off and then went, and then it's like, well, go and have a good time. But it's like throwing you into this situation where you don't know anyone, you know, and I just find those sort of things uncomfortable. And, you know, like go and have fun on demand. It's not a... I must have been all right looking back at it. You know, you would have all sat around and had a nice tea. They would have put every effort on to give the kids a good time. It's not their fault that I was a little sulky so-and-so, but there would be a Santa Claus there, but you would know obviously that it wasn't Santa Claus. As I said yesterday, I think, you know, a very obviously fake cotton wool beard, and you know, having to go, and it wasn't that I minded sitting on Santa's lap. Nobody ever did anything inappropriate. It was just the fact that I had to try and make conversation with a complete stranger. You know, it just didn't work for me very well. But so we had the Christmas party, but you would get a little present. You know, when you went to see Santa, he would give you sort of a generic girl's present or a generic boy's present, and then he'd tell you to be really good, and then he'd bring you what you really wanted on Christmas morning. But aside from that, there was also the pantomime, you know, big British tradition, and I don't remember what the pantomime was, and I only remember going to one as a child. But it was the lady who used to look after us while my mum was working. She had taken us, it was a big coach load of people, and we'd all gone up to London on this coach with Mrs. Stagg, who, you know, she was always Mrs. Stagg to me. I was never allowed to call her auntie this or by, you know, certainly didn't call adults by their Christian name in those days. And then it would be her son and daughter and my sister. And I must have been the youngest, because on the way home, sitting in the coach, I got sat next to Mrs. Stagg, who was deaf as a post. She couldn't hear a thing. And she said, "Oh, you can go to sleep on my lap." And she just kind of flattened me down in her lap. And again, I don't just sleep in well, I don't sleep anyway, but I just remember, instead of sitting up and being able to look out the window and enjoy the ride home, I'm laying there stiff as a board, not wanting to be rude and say no, because, you know, when I was little, you didn't say no to adults. If they said go to sleep in your lap, you just laid there and did your best to pretend and hope that it was over soon. And, you know, it wasn't her fault. She meant well. She did mean well. But also the other thing, I do remember being very little, that I used to feel very sorry for children who had very skinny mums, because I used to think, when they give you a cuddle, it can't be very comfy. My mum wasn't a big lady at all. I mean, she was a lot smaller than I am now, but she didn't have sharp edges. So if you gave her a cuddle, it was soft, it was warm. But that's a total digression. So what else haven't I covered? I was going to tell you a few of my favourite presents when I was little. Not very, very little. My best present ever had to have been my doll's pram. It was a big metal coach-built Silvercroft doll's pram. Chris and I both had one. Hers was blue and white. I got grey. Wasn't as nice looking as hers, but apart from that, they were identical. You know, they would have costed exactly the same, and it was big enough for. I must have been, again, very little, because first time out with it, we used to go down to the local parade of shops every day, and I pushed my pram to the shops, and apparently Mum had to sit me in it and push me home again because it was too hard for me to push it all the way back again. And so that was the best one. But Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, as I was growing older, became a sad day for me, because my dad was an absolute fanatic about clean and tidy, and we had all of these new toys, and he could not cope with the amount of toys that we had. So then it was a case of, right, you've got all these new toys, go and pick out an equal amount of old toys, and then you'd take them all up to the hospital on Boxing Day and give them to the children's ward for the children to play with. And so it was kind of sad that, yeah, I was really grateful that I had the new things, but I had to give away some of the things that I really wanted and loved, but there was no choice about it. It was a case of, you can't have it all. You pick out what you want to get rid of, and the rest has to go to the poor children in hospital. Two presents that do stand out in my mind were Etch-a-Sketch. I really enjoyed the Etch-a-Sketch, and I don't know if nowadays they do, because I think Etch-a-Sketch might still be going, but in those days you could only go, you're going to have to, if you don't know what an Etch-a-Sketch is, it's like this, it's like a screen, and you can draw things on it just using two knobs that move the I don't know how to describe it. How would you describe it to somebody who's never seen one? But there's like where the pen tip is on the screen, you've got one knob that will move it vertically and the other horizontally, but to get a curve, it's really kind of skill using both the knobs at the same time. But I did enjoy my Etch-a-Sketch. And then when you'd drawn something, you'd turn it upside down, shake it, and it would be blank screen and ready to start again. And I also loved a spirograph, and I'm pretty sure that my kids had a spirograph, but I can't remember if it's the one I'd kept from my childhood or if I bought them one of their own later on. But I did enjoy it. Was another one of those presents that I had to share, but that was okay, because with spirograph there was enough stuff in there that you could both play it at the same time. So Chris and I could both do it at the same time. But I wouldn't have said that these were my favourite presents, but these are the only two that have lasted. And this one was from my mother's father, my grandfather, and it was part of a dressing table set. In those days, ladies would have a dressing table set of a mirror, a matching hairbrush, a clothes brush and a comb, and they would have a very nice adult one. And this was just a cheap plastic set. I had a green one, as you can see, and my sister had a blue one, I think hers was. And I don't know how, we must have been kind of almost young teenagers, maybe 12, 13, something like that. Or I don't really know how old we were when we got these, but it's something that has lasted over 50 years. You know, the other bits of the set are long gone, but I still have the mirror. And the other thing that I have, and it was one of the few things where Chris and I got the same but different, and I think I was about 8 when I got this, and this is my little needlework box. And she had one, hers was a different shape and very, very slightly bigger. And after all these years, the buckle's coming off and it won't open. Oh no, how upsetting. Finally get it out to show you and it's not working. Oh, that's it. So you've got your pin cushion there for pins and needles there. It's not all original things inside, but one of the, or it might have moved now. When I decided a couple of years ago to restock it. And so I went through the things that were in here and actually found the original pot of pins, dressmaker's pins that I had. And it turned out it wasn't mine because it had my sister's initials scratched onto the back of it. But they're now not in here, so I must have moved those into another box. And it's looking its age, shall we say, but then if I got it when I was 8, that would make it 55 years old. But it sits on the side in my bedroom, and I like it in there because then if I've got something where a hem's starting to fall down or a button's falling off or whatever, it's got a little handle there. You know, it means I've always got it there for quick running repairs. But my mum would never have thought when she bought this, you know, 55 plus years ago, that I would still have it as an old lady. But here it is, and it's now a family heirloom, and when I die somebody else is going to have to take it on and say, oh, that was Nanny Jan's. But this is actually looking a little bit dusty. I should have dusted it first. But that's one of my precious things that has lasted all of these years, and I've kept it because it's practical. You know, for all the other things, toys and games and things, they get left and lost in the mist of time. But because this has its use, I've kept it all these years. It was replaced some years later when Chris and I both got bigger sewing boxes that had legs so they could be used as dressing table stools. And I actually still have that one as well. That's in the cupboard downstairs, but I was a teenager by the time I got that. But I never saw the need to get rid of this because this was a handy little box, doesn't take up much room. It's a nice little heart shape, and as I say, it's one of the few times where Chris and I got the same, only different, and I was really pleased that with the one that I had, that I preferred it to the one that she had. Because invariably when we both had the same but different, I used to think hers was better than mine. But this time I was very lucky, and I think actually she's still got hers. We were talking, I put a picture of this on Facebook a few years ago and said I've had this long, and I'm pretty sure she said, yeah, I've still got mine as well. But anyway, they're my the last of my childhood Christmas memories, really, I think. So we've talked about carol singers and the children's party. The only last thing that I can think of that we used to do then, but we don't seem to do anymore, is tipping. I know in the USA tipping is still a huge thing, and I know I think it's still quite common in this country to tip a hairdresser, but it seems to me more and more that we just think, well, you're being paid for what you're doing. And so the only time that Neil and I tip regularly is if we go out to eat and if we have had good service. But I do say if we've had good service, because our staff in restaurants and things don't rely on tips as part of their wages like they do in other countries. And I think, well, you're getting paid at least minimum wage, and if you've not done a good job, then you know, I'm not going to tip you for it. But if you do a good job, then I'll be generous and say, and I think it's probably, you know, if we went out nearer Christmas, then we might be a bit more generous as well. But the other thing is, we used to tip people that brought services to the house. So our dustmen, or refuse collectors if you like, you'd always put £5 in an envelope and tape it to the dustbin lid, and you know, that would be for them to, I don't know if whoever got to the bin got to keep the whole £5, or if it was taken and put in a pot and shared out. I have no idea, but it was something that was standard that everybody did. You would tip your milkman. In those days, well, right up until probably about 30 years ago, everybody had their milk delivered daily by a milkman. So you would always give the milkman a tip at Christmas. And I don't know, again, if that was ever shared out with the staff back at the dairy, but your milkman was literally your milkman, and he would be the one who brought you your milk on a daily basis, and you would say thank you for doing that. The last person that you would tip is your paper boy. Before we had all the internet and things like that, when we were still reading newspapers, if you had your paper delivered, then it was normally a young lad, sometimes a young girl, but whoever was doing the paper round, you would give them a tip at Christmas as well. And that just, well, we don't have a paper boy anymore. We don't have a milk delivery anymore. We have our bins emptied, so the dustmen do come round, but frankly the job they do now isn't nearly as worthy of reward as it was years ago, when it was much harder, whereas now you're not carrying the rubbish, they're in bins that go on wheels, they click onto the lorry picks it all up, tips it in. Frankly, I could do it. Well, I do half it, because I'm expected to take the bin to where they collect it from. Whereas in the old days, everybody would have a dustbin with a lid on it, and your rubbish would go in loose into the dustbin. There was no such thing as bin liners. It would all get tipped loose, and the dustbin would have a handle on it, and so the dustman would pick it up by the handle, carry it over his shoulder, tip it into the lorry, and it was a dirty, smelly, nasty job. So they deserved a bit extra at Christmas. But nowadays, you know, it's just, I'm not saying it's not hard work and they're not earning their money. I'm not saying that at all. You know, it's a worthy job, and I'm glad that they are doing it. I'm just saying that it has improved vastly over the course of my lifetime. But oh my goodness, because I don't have the time cut off like I do on my other camera, I'm allowed to just rabbit on much longer with this one. So if you have stayed this long, thank you. Drop in the comments below about some of your Christmas memories. You know, it'd be nice to hear if you've got similar memories to mine, or if it's vastly different. And please, you know, if you're new to the channel, do like and subscribe. And you know, if you drop a comment, it does help the algorithm, and it does help. So anyway, for today, I think I'm pretty much talked out, but I will be back tomorrow for the next thrilling episode. So until then, take care. Lots of love. Bye.